Our story begins in Fortune City, then known as Ilu-Oro, under the rule of Queen Ademikosi. In the border village of Imoye, the people were terrorized by a mysterious band of thieves called the Ogaras, whose faces were hidden and whose clothes were always aflame, though they never burned. No one knew where they came from, but their raids were well known. One sunny day, Chief Ibekunle sought guidance from Babaoje, the village sage. Babaoje had long been revered for his prophetic visions, even by the queen herself. Chief Ibekunle, impatient, didn't wait to hear Babaoje's full advice and stormed out after hearing what he thought was enough. There's more. Babaoje called after him, urging the needs for sacrifices and prayers, but Ibekunle dismissed it as an attempt to exploit him. Ignoring the warning, Chief Ibekunle gathered the villagers and declared that every boy in Imoye would be trained in warfare. He proclaimed that 2 of these boys would be the key to defeating their enemies and representing the village in the 7 land. Months later, Adio found himself in the midst of a festival, but instead of enjoying it, he was filled with frustration. He watched the dancers closely, then turned his attention to the musicians. Terrible, he muttered to himself. The music was flat, lacking the energy and skill he believed it needed. He could not understand how everyone else seemed to love it, shaking with joy. But to him, it was far from the music he had learned to appreciate. Even at the age of 17, Adio had absorbed the melodies of musicians from across the different towns in Ilu-Oro, able to recognize the mastery or the lack thereof of each player. Beside him stands Ojo, his best friend, looking also unimpressed. The two had earned the nickname Birds of a Feather because they often skipped the military training expected of boys in their village. Adio, though he had the skill and passion, wasn't allowed to play music in public. Only men who had hunted dangerous beasts or fought in battle could earn that privilege. So as Adio wandered the festival, he was nearly knocked over by a young woman. "Move aside, young man," she said sharply. He quickly adjusted his hat to hide his face. Queen Ademikosi's soldiers were patrolling to prevent any incursion from Ogaras into the internal part of Ilu-Oro, always leaving Imoye to fend for itself. And Adio didn't want to draw attention. The young lady glanced at him, and suddenly recognition hit. "Irede," he whispered, turning away quickly. Ojo saw her too and warned, "Don't let her see you." Irede was no ordinary girl. While most women in Imoye farmed and cooked, she refused to conform, demanding the same warrior training given to the men, and her loud and rebellious nature made her stand out. But Adio and Ojo knew better than to get tangled with her in this town of Kokoro. As the festival began to wind down and the crowd dispersed, Adio saw his chance. He had been eyeing the musicians' instruments, now unattended, as the players stumbled off, drunk from the community's celebratory wine. Slipping into their practice arena, Adio hurried to the array of instruments. He quickly and carefully picked one up, convinced that no one would notice if it were missing for a while. Before he could make his escape, Irede appeared out of nowhere, startling him into dropping the instrument. "You!" she exclaimed, blocking his path. Adio, caught off guard, tried to play innocent, but Ojo arrived at a worst moment. "Adio!" Ojo called out, stopping short when he saw Irede standing there. She eyed them both suspiciously. "Where have you been?" she demanded. "You're supposed to be training back in Imoye." Ojo, tell me the truth. After a tense silence, Ojo finally admitted. We came to learn how Kukoro protect itself, how they defend their people. Irede shook her head. Kukoro doesn't need to worry about defense like we do. They don't face the same threat from Ogaras. Ojo opened a smile to argue, but Irede cut him off with a sudden shout of thief, thief. Adio's heart raced as she saw the glint of mischief in her eyes. She told them to run. Realizing the danger, both boys sprinted away before anyone could catch them. Behind them, Irede remained calm, secretly opening the wooden cloth. Not long after, two men arrived, drawn by her cries. Where's the thief? One demanded, still holding his drumsticks. Irede pointed them in the wrong direction, sending them off on a wild chase towards the Oguaye River. As soon as they were out of sight, Irede slipped through the musician's compound, planning her next move. Her eyes scanned the area until they fell on Ajanaku, the finest horseman in the land. Effortlessly riding his horse, he was a legend in Kukoro, undefeated in both battle and training. Irede had long admired him from afar, curious about his methods and strength before she could approach him. However, a voice interrupted her thoughts. One push and you're dead, it said. Irede gasped and turned to find Ajanaku himself standing before her, his large muscular frame glistening with sweat from his ride. Without a word, he raised his machete, the sharp edge grazing her neck ever so slightly. It was a silent warning. Caught off guard, Irede struggled to steady her voice, her heart racing. How did you? She began, astonished at his speed. But her words faded as the reality of the situation sunk in. Ajanaku's eyes remained cold and unwavering. I'm not Ajanaku for nothing, he said, his voice slow and firm. His gaze pierced through her, demanding an explanation. Who sent you? Irede paused, quaking, but she stood her ground, refusing to be intimidated. No one sent me, she answered, her voice gaining strength. I do what I want, and right now I want to learn from the best. For a long moment, Ajanaku studied her, his expression unreadable. His skepticism was clear, though as his eyes narrowed. What do you want? He asked, his tone cautious yet laced with curiosity. I want you to teach me, Irede said, not missing a beat. Her voice was clear now, firm with determination. I want to be as skilled as you. Ajanaku's gaze swept over her, his disbelief evident. His smirk tugged at the corner of his lips, almost mocking. You're a girl, he said bluntly, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. Even the boys can't keep up with my training, and you think you can? I can, Irede shot back, her confidence unshaken. His voice gleamed with a mixture of intrigue and disbelief. He paused, seemingly weighing her words before he spoke again. All right, he said calmly, as if testing her resolve. But first, you have to do something for me. A flicker of hope sparked in Irede's chest. She leaned forward slightly, eager to know more. What is it? She asked, determined to prove herself. You will deliver a message to Feishara, Ajanaku said, his voice measured. The chief's daughter. Irede blinked in surprise. Feishara, the chief's daughter, was known for her beauty and status, someone far removed from Irede's world. She hadn't expected this. The chief's daughter, she repeated, her brow furrowing. That's Feishara. Ajanaku's expression remained impassive as he nodded. Yes, he confirmed. Be my go-between and I will teach you everything you need to know. Silence hung between them for a moment. Irede's mind raced, weighing the risks and rewards. Finally, she nodded. Deal, she agreed. Ajanaku's lip curled into a smile. Good, he said, his voice filled with finality. Tell her to meet me by the moon at our place. Before Irede could respond, Ajanaku spurred his horse into action. galloping away in a cloud of dust, leaving her standing there, her heart pounding with anticipation. She had a mission now, with it the opportunity she had been waiting for. Meanwhile, back at Imoye, Adio couldn't stop thinking about the tune that filled his mind as he and Ojo traveled through the forest, even 2 days after escaping Irede at Kugoro. It was the best tune he had ever thought of, and now, even as he finished eating the pounded yam his mother made, he worried that washing his hand might wash away the melody. With a mumble, a man must die once, he reluctantly trudged off to clean his hands. Upon returning, he uncovered a bamboo flute hidden beneath his mat. Excited, he brought it to his lips, but after several attempts, one note kept going wrong. Frustrated, he muttered, "I need freedom, space." Deciding to go to the mountain by the Oguaye River, far from the army training ground he despised, he quickly prepared to leave. Sneaking out, Adio thought he was in the clear until his mother appeared, singing loudly and blocking his path. "Adio," she cried, and soon his father emerged, shouting for Ige to summon Balogun's men. After he heated back and forth, Adio turned back to his room, but soon escaped through the roof, heading towards the mountain. Meanwhile, Irede, disguising herself as a man, frowned at her reflection in the stream. Since becoming the messenger for both Feishara and Ajanaku, she had mixed feeling about the plan. While he brought her closer to Feishara, he kept her from bonding with Ajanaku as she had hoped. Despite training with him, she struggled, prompting Ajanaku to mock her. "You are the worst person I've seen hold a sword," he growled. She pleaded for more chances, but Ajanaku's patience wore thin. Determined to improve, Irede decided to sneak into the warriors' training ground. As she crouched to pass through a door, a guard spotted her. "Who are you?" he demanded, tightening his grip on his cutlass. Before Irede could respond, Suberu Oje recognized and ridiculed her desire to fight with the boys and men of Imoye. Mocked and humiliated, Irede defiantly stood her ground, but when the man laughed and dismissed her, she ran for her life. Suberu and his friend gave her a chase, but Irede, driven by her determination, raced towards the mountain, seeking a way to prove herself. In this same side of the mountain, Adio caressed his flute, eager to play the perfect tune he had been practicing for days. He waited for the warriors to start their training, sure that this time he could get it right. As the training began, Adio couldn't help but think of Feishara, the chief's daughter, whose hidden love for him showed in her eyes. Even though she favored Ajanaku, the head warrior's shouts snapped Adio back to focus, and as he prepared to play, he noticed Irede on the other side of the mountain, clutching a machete and watching the soldier. Determined to improve, Adio blew into his flute, while Irede, frustrated with her training, began mimicking the soldier's movement, surprising herself with how fluidly she moved. Suddenly, Suberu and his companions, Yomi and Olu, appeared before Irede, intending to capture her for his boss to earn respect. Irede, unimpressed, warned Suberu to stay back. Suberu promised her to give her a share of any reward he got for bringing her, but she refused him. He came forward to scare her, but she easily fended him off with her machete, stunning Suberu and his companions with a newfound skill. Suberu, realizing her talent, stopped the fight and rushed alongside his companions to inform Balogun, the head of the warriors, leaving Irede standing victorious. Adio, deeply engrossed in perfecting his flute tune, was tempted to watch the exciting fight between Irede and Suberu's group. Despite his desire to keep observing, he knew he had to finish his performance, so he was determined to refine his tune, which he felt was still mediocre, with some notes off. Adio found the fight entertaining as Irede fought with impressive skill, reminding him of renowned warriors like Ajanaku, Ayedola, and Majekodumi, whose stories were well known in Imoye, as it has been before Baba Oje's declaration. Imoye was a place where tales of war were passed down rather than folklore, and every boy and man grew up with a weapon at their hand, while women focused on their tasks like farming. But Baba Oje's prophecy made it even more compulsory for the boys. So as Adio played, he heard a strange whistling sound. Initially dismissing it as a random noise, he soon realized it was a known whistle, signaling a message. The whistle was from his closest friend, Ojo, indicating that Adio's father and Suberu's father were approaching. Adio hurriedly gathered his flute and drum and moved towards the only path away from the mountain. He encountered his father and Baba Suberu, who were determined to bring Adio back home. They all struggled but eventually managed to overpower Adio and take him back home. So locked in his house, Adio was frustrated by the delay in understanding the situation. So that night, he was surprised to hear Ojo was at the window, expressing regret for leading the others to him. They quickly escaped the house together. Meanwhile, Suberu had fixed the meeting between Irede and Balogun. So Irede was waiting for a meeting with Balogun, who had told Suberu he would see her when the moon was high. Despite the moon's beauty, Irede was focused on improving her skills and understanding what had helped her during the fight earlier. Suberu and his companions arrived. Irede was shocked when Balogun questioned how she had managed to beat Suberu and the boys. She explained that she had been training, watching them and other warriors from afar, and she was able to beat them because they attacked her. Balogun, disinterested in her explanation, offered to have his daughter train her in secret, but refused to allow her to join the army. He asked for a demonstration, but Irede couldn't beat any of the boys. Suberu, angered by the situation, insulted Irede, causing her to feel disheartened and disgraced. She ran away from the village, seeking a place where her skills could be recognized and valued. Adio, still in the forest, witnessed the chaos as Irede hurried through, followed by Suberu calling her name. He also saw the village being engulfed in flame and chaos as the Ogaras launched a new attack. Baba Oje, who had been watching over Adio, advised Adio to stay hidden rather than risk his life in the conflict. Baba Oje emphasized that Adio's skills in music would become crucial in the aftermath of the war, urging him to focus on mastering his craft. So as the village grappled with the attack, Chief Ibekule, having been advised by Baba Oje, realized the need for all children to be trained for battle, not just boys. He ordered that from the next day, all children and young ones, except the elderly ones, would be prepared to defend the village. Adio, taking Baba Oje's advice to heart, decided to concentrate on perfecting his music, understanding that his talents would be needed in the future, even if he could not join the battle now. Irede, realizing Suberu was following her, tricked him into thinking she was heading to Kukoro village, while she actually went to Etioshumare. There, her tutor, the warrior, Majekodumi, had low expectation of her, believing her mind wasn't sharp enough to become a great warrior. Majekodumi, another warrior who had been introduced to her by Ajanaku, urged her to keep trying despite her recent failures in trainings and battle. Returning home after 2 days, Irede found her village had suffered only minor damage from Ogaras' attack, but she was still shaken. She spotted Adio sneaking up a path and approached him, discovering he was watching 3 people: Feishara, who was Chief Ibekunle's daughter; Segilola, who was the Balogun's daughter; and a guard. Curious, Irede asked Adio whom he liked among the 3, causing him to nervously reveal he admired Feishara. Irede laughed, revealing that Feishara liked Ajanaku, a fact that she knew from her own interaction. She threatened to tell Ajanaku about Adio's feeling unless he helped her to join the fighters. Adio told her she didn't need him to enter anymore because both boys and girls would now be trained. However, she still insisted on his help. She wanted Adio's help to avoid being the center of attention herself. Despite his initial resistance, Adio reluctantly agreed to assist her, only to be interrupted by Suberu, who confronted them about their plans. Irede and Adio were astonished to see Suberu, who recounted that he had followed Irede the day she fled the village in tears. After losing track of her, he encountered Prince Adedimeji of Ilu-Oro and his servants, who were in disguise. The prince had wanted to experience life in various villages anonymously, and Suberu had taken him on a tour. Though Suberu had initially avoided Imoye, he would now offer to help Irede and Adio by providing a confidence charm, though it would come at a cost. So Adio, despite his apprehension, agreed to cover the fee. Suberu told Adio that the confidence charm would help him play better and help Irede fight better. So Suberu assured them that the farm, which he had soaked in a mysterious water, would significantly boost their confidence. He instructed them to repeat a confidence mantra and wash their head with the charm water. Irede and Adio followed his instructions, eager for promised enchantment. When they resumed their training, the results were disheartening. Irede, despite her skill, was defeated by a younger girl, and Adio struggled with his music, leading to his return to the army. Balogun, their trainer, announced that everyone would be grouped for further training. Adio hoped to avoid being selected. However, he ended up in a group with other misfits. And these misfits were none other than Irede, Suberu, Olu, Yomi, Ojo, which is Adio's friend, and Segilola, Balogun's daughter, whom he had been trying to keep away from the hand of the battlefield. Balogun labeled their group Oto, which upset Segilola, his daughter, who felt she deserved better. Despite the disparaging name, Suberu remained optimistic about their potential, believing that their unique team could still achieve something significant. As the group prepared for their training, tension ran high, but Suberu's confidence in their abilities provided a glimmer of hope. Balogun's consistent training sections for the group led to some progress, though the Oto Band struggled. Segilola, despite her skill, remained disengaged due to her resentment towards her father. She refused to participate in the group activities and got harsh criticism alongside her teammates, which even made the team divided. In a heated confrontation, Suberu challenged Segilola's attitude, emphasizing the need for her effort and for her to be resilient. Segilola's outburst revealed her frustration with her father, who expected her to be great at fighting but still gave her a team that wasn't adequate. Suberu and others rallied round to motivate her, stressing that they had to persevere. The group sought advice from Babaoje, who provided them with an insight that the power they needed was among them. So Irede, Feeling she had been empowered by Subaru's charm the other time, challenged Subaru to a sparring match but was easily defeated, highlighting the gap in her training. Now, Adio, feeling demoralized, turned to music, hoping to impress Feishara. However, his performance was dismissed as rubbish and he was later humiliated in front of Feishara, whom he was peeping on. Feishara saw him and invited him to come and play as a clown at her wedding introduction because his music was off. And this left Adio feeling deeply hurt. Despite her reluctance, Segilola continued to train with the group. Well, their effort was met with constant criticism from Balogun, but they kept at it. Irede kept going for more training with Ajanaku, who also introduced her to Owaje for a new style of training called Dance Like a Fighter. This method seems to work and will help Irede to build confidence in her skill. However, she still wasn't doing well enough. As the group trained together, they began to form bond and support one another. They laughed, raised and celebrated any small victory, which was only what they were getting at the training. And gradually, the others were improving their performances. Irede and Adio, however, found solace in their friendship. So one morning, Irede and Adio secretly met to practice, each determined to excel in their respective areas. But while they were making the plans, they made it in front of Segilola, who laughed at the banter and the joke they made to each other. To their surprise, Subaru and the others joined them for the practice. Segilola revealed that she was the one who told the other members of the group. Afterward, Segilola talked about her frustration about preparing for Feishara's introduction. She explained that Feishara's father was trying to enlist help from the chief of Kukoro and the queen of Ilu-Oro in general, because the queen has refused to risk her troops for a matter that local warriors could handle. Subaru, clearly tired by the group's lack of progress, decided that it was time for a new approach. He felt they needed to do something better. Adio, play something, Subaru demanded, hoping to distract everybody from their frustration. Adio reluctantly picked up his instrument, but his performance was lackluster, drawing horrible looks from both Subaru and the others. As he played, Subaru's frustration boiled over. "Stop, it's just noise," Subaru yelled. "Irede, get ready. Let's see if this noise can be useful as a background for your training." Irede rolled her eyes but took a position, preparing for a practice session. Adio, feeling disheartened, tried to play more purposefully, hoping to contribute something valuable. As he began, something unexpected happened. Irede's strike started to synchronize with Adio's drum. Her movement became sharper and more precise, almost as if they were being guided by the rhythm of his drum. Subaru and the others watched in astonishment as Irede's skill visibly improved. Encouraged by this development, Subaru instructed Olu and Yomi to spar with Irede. To their surprise, Irede outpaced them effortlessly, her speed and accuracy enhanced by Adio's drumming. Realizing the potential of this newfound coordination, Subaru decided to test it further. He called Ojo to the center and had him to fight Irede while Adio drummed. The results were even more impressive. Each beat of Adio's drum seems to empower Irede, making her fighting movements even more effective. As Irede continued to demonstrate her improved abilities, the group's expression shifted from skepticism to realization. They understood that the synergy between Adio's drumming and Irede's fighting could be a significant advantage. "What's happening?" Adio asked, bewildered by their sudden change. Segilola explained that whenever Adio played, Irede's fighting skills improved, and the combination of their talents could be their secret weapon. The group also explained to him that his playing skills also improved the moment he saw her fighting. Suberu, seeing the potential, proposed informing Balogun of this breakthrough. However, Segilola suggested they needed more training to ensure they were fully prepared before revealing their progress. Despite initial hesitation, the group agreed to continue their rigorous training, determined to perfect their newfound skills. Adio, however, was more focused on showcasing his abilities during Freyshara's introduction. He wanted to impress her and others by revealing the extent of his progress. But Segilola, ever the strategist, advised him against that. She believed it was too soon and insisted that they keep their true strength hidden until the right moment. Adio wasn't one to just agree right away. When Segilola told him to act like a fool and wait, he frowned. "I don't see why I should," he argued. "I've worked hard. I want to show everyone what I can do, especially at Faye's introduction." Segilola shook her head. "You will ruin everything if you show your hand too soon. Trust me, we need to stay quiet for now or they'll prepare for us." Adio crossed his arms. "I'm not afraid of anyone. I can take them on." "You're not getting it," Segilola snapped, her eyes narrowing. "This is not about fear. It's about strategy. If they think we are weak, they won't be ready when we finally show them what we've got. We have the upper hand." Adio, still not convinced, but he knew Segilola was smart. The other watched quietly, waiting to see if he would listen. After a moment, he sighed, "Fine, I will wait. But when the time comes, I won't hold back." "Good," Segilola replied with a grin. "We will make them regret underestimating us." Unlike before, when Suberu would push himself too hard to win, now he didn't focus on winning at all at the general practice. Instead, the group practiced what they knew in secret, with Segilola leading their training. She was efficient and Suberu was still their leader because of his passion for the team. He was hardworking, arriving at practice early, bringing gifts, scolding when needed, and cheering them up when they were tired. Ojo, always experimenting, kept trying new things with Irede and Adio. Sometimes Irede wanted to tell him to stop with his ideas because they were exhausting. But after several days of training, they discovered a new trick. Adio's music could boost their fighting power regardless of the instrument he played. Whenever Adio played his instrument and Irede was fighting, anyone supporting them would become stronger. Segilola tested this out first, easily beating the boys alongside Irede, and she tried again when Irede was simply practicing on her own. Together, they tried it against Ojo, and Ojo won all of them, including against Segilola, without much effort. Ojo suggested ways to improve, and soon the group started fighting as a team. Irede, who had learned moves from different people, quickly taught them her techniques, while Adio kept the rhythm with his drumming, and it all came together, and they finally won their practice battles with ease. "We are going to win the big fight," Segilola said, her eyes shining. Ojo noticed her excitement. "You seem happy," Segilola grinned, rubbing his hair. "I'm ready to beat someone's children today." Ojo, still alert, replied, "I've been seeing strange things. The animals are acting odd and something feels off." The team wasn't sure what to make of his warning, but they trusted him. After more discussion, they realized the Ogaras, their enemy, might be planning something big. They agreed they needed to be more prepared and win their upcoming fight to prove their strength and make everybody rally around them. When the day of the big practice fight arrived, they fought fiercely, winning every match. Even Balogun was impressed by their skills. Irede moved so smoothly during the fight, knowing exactly where to hit her opponents to win without hurting them too much. They had finally mastered their teamwork. But just as they were celebrating, a horn blew, signaling trouble. Balogun and a soldier rushed off to investigate, leaving the group behind. Suberu knew they had to follow, even though they had no horses. Their training had made them fast and skilled, and they quickly caught up, heading towards Chief's house. At the Chief's house, chaos erupted. Feisara had been kidnapped. Balogun, furious, organized a soldier, but when Segilola offered their help, he dismissed them. "You are not ready for war," he told them. Segilola wasn't willing to back down. She knew Oto Band was strong, and Ojo had another suspicion. The Ogaras were planning an ambush. He explained how they might be working with a larger army, planning to attack from two sides. Segilola's quick thinking led to a plan to rescue Feishara and stop the attack. The group agreed to the plan after some adjustments. Suberu, who had been thoughtful throughout, finally spoke up. "We can do this." As they prepared to execute their plan, Irede looked at Suberu, her eyes filled with pride. They weren't just a team anymore, they were ready for war. After several attempts, the group finally reached the Ogaras, who were gathered around the fire. Irede felt the pressure to excel, knowing the Ogaras were feared fighters. Suberu's trust in her made her nervous, and Ojo emphasized the need for light so Adio could see Irede and vice versa. The team faced the dilemma. Suberu proposed going near the fight, but Segilola and Ojo debated the plan's risk. Segilola insisted on accompanying Ojo, while Suberu and Olu would distract the Ogaras. The plan was eventually settled, and Segilola and Ojo set traps, while Suberu and Ojo created a diversion. The execution went smoothly, with Olu's streak leading several Ogaras into the trap. Suberu and Yomi retrieved the torch and called for Irede. With Adio drumming, Irede felt energized, predicting the Ogaras' move and fighting them effectively despite their aggression. When the last Ogaras fell, Suberu and now they had found Feishara. Adio and Feishara embraced, while Irede, exhausted, began to collapse. Segilola, holding a torch, and Ojo left immediately to seek help for Irede. Suberu and Yomi mounted their horses with captured Ogaras and headed towards the Queen's palace. And before losing her consciousness, Irede saw her team making their escape. "Farewell," she whispered as she drifted off. With Suberu and Yomi gone to visit the Queen and confirm the truth they had uncovered, the group felt a heavy sense of uncertainty. Adio, deep in thought as their horse trudged along, couldn't shake on his. He had stopped humming a sound, a rare occurrence, and Feishara, riding beside him, noticed. "You've stopped singing," she remarked softly, her head resting against him. Adio nodded, though he remembered she couldn't see him. "Yes, I don't know how we will tell the chief the truth we know, and then there's Balogun to face." Segilola, sharp as ever, called from her horseback. "Don't forget about Balogun. He will want the answer too." The tension was thick as the group rode on in silence, save for the occasional rustling of leaves. The weight of the attacks hung over them, especially for Segilola, who seems to bear the brunt of everyone's trust and expectation. Even when people tried to mock her, she was the one they listened to. Yet, fatigued from the recent battle and uncertainty about what lay ahead had silenced everyone. Eventually, Feishara sighed, breaking the silence. "Segilola can talk to her father, and I'll speak with mine." Her voice was tired, her body aching from the ordeal, but determination underlying her words. When they reached the chief's house, the reception wasn't what they expected. Rather than relief or celebration, the air was thick with mourning. Soldiers had fallen in an ambush by the Igara warriors, and the village had been thrown into grief. Segilola, still rattled by Ojo's injuries, seemed barely present, her focus consumed by worry for him. "I can only try," she said when Feishara mentioned her father. It was clear her mind was elsewhere. Adio glanced at the group. They were all exhausted, physically and mentally. Let's tell them after we slept for a bit, he suggested. Though they were too tired to argue, Olu muttered something about needing sleep, and Ojo, lying nearby, muttered in agreement. The night wore on, and despite their exhaustion, they managed to spread words of what they've discovered. Panic spread through the village, and instead of preparing for battle, people began packing their things, ready to flee. By the next morning, chaos reigned. When Balogun learned what had happened, he was furious. "Bring them to me," he demanded, his voice echoing with authority. Within minutes, men had rounded up the Oto group. Though Segilola's name was called last, she came hurrying, ready to face whatever wrath awaited them. Balogun berated them, his anger palpable. Ojo, however, wouldn't stop talking about the animal signs he had seen. Birds living in the forest, animal behaving unusually. It's not new, Balogun snapped, dismissing him. But Ojo persisted, convinced of his observations. Frustrated and unwilling to hear more, Balogun ordered them all to be imprisoned. Even his own daughter was not spared. Feishara tried to resist, invoking her father's name, but Balogun was unmoved. He threw them all into the cell, including her, despite her protest. Inside the dim, confining space, Irede felt loneliness pressed down on her. She had always been the one to fight, to push forward, but now as she watched Segilola tending to Ojo's injury and Feyi Shara leaning on Adio for comfort, she felt a deep sense of isolation. She couldn't help but wonder where Subiru was and whether he had succeeded in his mission to reach the queen. As they settled into their confinement, a small comfort arrived in the form of Tinola, a homely girl who brought them food. Affection for Olu was evident, and despite the tension, there was a brief moment of levity as Olu mentioned they hoped to marry soon. "You are not too old," Irede teased, though Olu shot back, "but not too young for marriage." Their peace was short-lived, however. Outside, the sound of chaos erupted. Tinola, wide-eyed and frantic, rushed to them with tears streaming down her face. She tugged at the cage, trying desperately to free them, but the door wouldn't budge. The town had been overrun by the Ogaras. There was no escape for them. "Go," Olu shouted at her, fear lacing his voice. "You can't stay here. Get out while you can." But Tinola refused, shaking her head in defiance. "I can't leave you alone. What if something happens to you?" Olu's eyes softened, torn between fear for her safety and his desire to have her by his side. "Nothing will happen to us," he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. Reluctantly, Tinola obeyed and fled, leaving the group behind in rising turmoil. As the noise of battle drew closer, they grew more desperate. Ojo, his voice weak, muttered something about the Ogaras, but Irede was too busy trying to force the door open to listen. Adio joined her, pushing and pulling at the heavy gate, but their efforts were in vain. Tinola came with cutlass to help open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Just when all seemed lost, Babaoja appeared, limping towards them. "Ah, this is where you are," he exclaimed, his voice a mix of relief and weariness. Tinola had told him where to find them, but he was without any tool to help. "You will have to break the door yourself," he said, sitting down as if the task was trivial. Adio voiced his frustration. "How are we supposed to do that?" Babaoja gave them a knowing smile. "You have more power than you realize. Adio, give us music." Irede, fight the cage. Adio looked bewildered. "But there are no instruments here." "It's not the instrument that help you," Babaoja corrected. "It is you. So sing." Reluctantly, Adio began to sing, his voice shaky at first. But as the melody grew, so did Irede's strength. She grabbed the machete, which had previously seemed useless, and with renewed energy, hacked at the door until it finally gave way. Before they could make a run for it, Segilola stopped them. "We need a plan. We can't just charge in. Our formation needs to be strong, especially now that Yomi and Subiru are not here." She turned to Ojo. "This time, look for the weak spots, Ojo, the places that give us advantage. Even if the strongest people are guiding them, that's where we'll strike. Though Ojo was still injured, he nodded, his determination matching Segilola's. Tinola, refusing to leave Olu's side, vowed to help however she could. Despite Olu's protest, the group prepared to enter the battlefield once again. They fought valiantly, attacking weak spots as Segilola had instructed. One by one, they gained ground. The villagers from Imoye called for help, but Segilola remained focused, ensuring they didn't stray from their plan. However, the tide of battle soon shifted. The leaders of the Ogaras, seeing his forces faltering, ordered all his men to convey on Irede's group. Surrounded and outnumbered, they fought with everything they had, but their strength was waning. Adio's voice cracked and Irede could barely fend off the wave of enemies coming for her. Just as they were about to be overwhelmed, a noise from the forest caught Irede's attention. She turned to see Suberu leading a large army. With renewed hope, the Oto group rallied. Suberu's forces charged in, turning the tide of the battle. By evening, the Ogaras had been defeated for the first time, marking a hard-won victory. Everything transformed quickly. The queen invited the heroes to join the Queen's Guard training. Imoye enjoyed peace, with Queen Ademiposi expanding her army to protect all city roads, including outside Imoye. Babaoje received many gifts and moved to live with the Queen. Adio married Feishara, Irede married Suberu, Olu and Tinola also got married. Well, Ojo and Segilola also became a couple, and Suberu and the prince grew closer with their friendship. This friendship will be what will help the prince later in another story of ours, when the prince will be facing the 7 mountains. However, what you would like to bring from this is that from time immemorial, men and women have excelled when following their chosen path. Destiny may guide them, but it is action that lead a person to where they truly belong. Don't stop listening to Fortune City. Don't stop reading our books.